Hey, what's going on everybody, and a warm welcome back to the Whiskey Cove. And on today's episode, we have a Jack Daniel's Distillery taste through for you folks. Run the video. Alright then folks, before we get into today's video, I have some really super exciting announcements right now. So we've just put out our first ever webpage for the Whiskey Cove. I'll put the link down in the description for the webpage. It's going to be called TheWhiskeyCove.square.site. On that webpage, you will be able to find just information about the YouTube channel. I also put a gallery on there as well with like a bunch of 50 photos about kind of like my whiskey journey thus far as well. Also, there's information there about a store which you've just put out there, where you'll see 5 items for sale. 4 of them are glassware and then one's just a sticker. And it's really beautiful premium glassware, all engraved with the Whiskey Cove's emblem, which looks really beautiful on glassware. What we have over there is the traditional Glencairn. We have the Speyside Taster. We have the Kenzie Dram, which is a pretty cool, comfortable alternative to the Glencairn. And then we also have this like rock solid 9-ounce Prism square glass, which looks perfect with an old fashioned, and it takes a beating because this thing is heavy duty. And then also on that webpage, you'll see a tab that says Patreon. Yes, we are bringing out a Patreon for the Whiskey Cove. We want to try to connect with fans here. We want to be able to build the community even more than it is already. We have a Discord, and we'll also be able to do some tier single barrel picks for those Patreon members as well. It's also a fantastic way for you folks at home to support the channel, and also, you know, maybe we can get some samples to you, some free glassware and some free swag. So I think everybody kind of wins there in the end. So do keep this in mind if you're looking for any new glassware. Like I said, it's really beautiful glassware. Some pictures on the screen previously, and also just go check us out on the website there as well. So with that being said, let's get into today's video, and we have a fantastic Jack Daniel's Distillery taste through. As you can see, we have 6 editions of Jack Daniel's in front of me. I could have picked a couple of different other ones, like the triple mash and potentially maybe some like the special releases, but I wanted to try to stay to the core as much as I can. I could have gone for Gentleman Jack as well, but I felt like we were pretty much covered with the Jack Daniel's number 7. I'm not going to do this blind. I'm just going to taste through them with you folks at home, give you some tasting notes, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about Jack Daniel's and the product here as well. So I think what I'll do is I'll start on your right and then work my way to your left here. So I haven't drunk Jack Daniel's Old Number 7 for a very, very long time. And a very, very long time on top of that I've drunk it straight. So this is a brand new bottle. I had to go out and get it. I had to go out to get the number 7 and the rye specifically for this video because I didn't have them. So let's get into Jack Daniel's Old Number 7. Pretty light in the glass, as you would expect, pretty thin looking. It's kind of like, I feel like everybody grew up and drunk Jack Daniel's for a period of time. I think especially in the UK when we didn't have much bourbon or Tennessee whiskey, Jack Daniel's, Jim Beam were the most prevalent, or the biggest staples. It's changed a lot now, but that's what it was like growing up for me. However, let's get into this whiskey here. So it definitely still has some of those typical Jack Daniel's notes. I get like a lot of brown sugar and bubblegum from Jack Daniel's just in general. But there's definitely a little bit of graininess there. But it's not too off-putting. I just think that some of the flavors in the glass are just a little bit subdued, that's all. It is 40% or 80 proof. I'm not going to get into the age-long debate if Jack Daniel's is bourbon or Tennessee whiskey. I think that it sits on both of those. I think Jack Daniel's applies federally for the rights for Tennessee whiskey and for bourbon. So maybe that tells you everything you need to know. So let's go in for a taste. Jack Daniel's Old Number 7. Very thin on the palate, not much flavor there at all. There is a little bit of a spice on the tongue, like a peppery spice, but there's just no finish with this whatsoever. Touch of sweetness up on the beginning there as well, but there's nothing much to it as well. It's kind of always been a mixer, Jack Daniel's 7, and I feel like, yes, you can drink it neat, and you can probably drink a lot of it neat as well, which tends to what people do. For this, I paid $19.99. I think that's about right. I think you'll get a lot of discount if you go up in size, like the handles, but it's just cheap and cheerful. It's no thrills. It is what it is. It knows what it is, and it's just a fun, cheap drink. People drink it when they go out, or just like when you're at college and whatnot. So no complaints about Jack Number 7. Like I said, just is what it is. So then moving on from Jack Daniel's Old Number 7, we have Jack Daniel's Bonded. big fan of Jack Daniel's bonded on this show, and one of the main reasons why I kind of wanted to do this episode. Obviously, because it's bonded, coming in at 50% ABV or 100 proof. Bonded meaning one distillery from one distilling season, 50% ABV or 100 proof there as well. So let's get into this whiskey here. As you can see, it looks a little bit more viscous in the glass there. Definitely a little bit darker than Old Number 7. Old Number 7 kind of had like a hay color. This is leaning more towards like copper and amber. It's kind of like you have some of those bubblegum and sweet notes that you had from the Old Number 7, but it's just so much more ramped up. You definitely get so much more caramel on this one. It's really hard to explain this, but sometimes when you smell something, it smells viscous because it's just so thick, and it reminds you so much of like caramel sauce or maple syrup that it just paints the picture of that the whiskey will just taste thick in your mouth. But it's just, yeah, caramel nut bread with just kind of like some brown sugar and cinnamon and some sauce drizzled on top. Let's go in for a taste here. It's just a great sipper. It truly is. It's a phenomenal sipper. For MSRP is around $30. I know that can fluctuate depending on what part of the country you are in. It's a 700 milliliter bottle, which is the only drawback for me. Taste-wise, it's very balanced. You get the spice, you get the sweetness, the caramel notes and the banana and the cherry comes through in the whiskey. It's very pleasant and an excellent addition to this Jack Daniel's lineup. With that being said, let's move on to the next one, and that is going to be Jack Daniel's 10-year. Never tasted this whiskey before, just opened it up for today's video, so I'm super excited to pick it apart because I love the bonded and I love the barrel proof. Hopefully, I'll love the 10-year. So this is coming in at 48.5% or 97 proof, so close to the bonded in ABV. You can definitely tell it's a very dark looking whiskey. Like, we're definitely getting towards the mahogany type color with this one. It is looking pretty viscous in the glass there as well. Let's take a nose. You don't get much of that bubblegum cherry note that I was getting from these two on this one. You're definitely getting a lot more wood. You're able to detect the age in this one so much more than these ones. If I did a blind with these three, I feel like I definitely would be able to pick this out just because it has so much of that oak aged backbone to it there as well. Let's go in for a taste here. Jack Daniel's 10. Wow, what a mouthfeel on that one. A lot more spicier than the other two. I guess with the age and the amount of time it's spent in the oak, more of that oak spice is coming through. Definitely a little peppery. Not as sweet as the other two thus far. I think that's the biggest takeaway from me so far. I was expecting maybe this to be a little bit more sweeter in line with the rest of the Jack Daniels I've tasted. However, it's not. It tastes more similar to a bourbon than maybe like a Tennessee whiskey, just because it has so much of that oak and oak spice. You get some of the vanillas there as well. And there is like a pecan, kind of a buttery pecan note there as well. So far, the first impressions of the 10 is it's a great whiskey, a really like classic bourbon type taste in whiskey with, again, that age and that oak presence there as well. We'll see how it goes when it opens up a little bit in the future, and hopefully I'll do a review for you folks there. So then moving on to a potential big gun here, definitely in price, because this is the Jack Daniel's Sinatra. Recommended retail price is about $170 to $200. Does come in a 1 liter bottle. ABV on this is 45% ABV or 90 proof. Of course, poured out for the man himself, Frank Sinatra, who liked his Jack Daniels. Of course, this wasn't available when he was around, but he used to drink Old Number 7, and he used to drink 3 fingers of Jack Daniels, 2 ice cubes, and 1 finger of water. I've tried that before, and it's actually pretty refreshing. Really nice sitting outside, kind of on a nice summer's day. You can have a couple as you do on the lawn. But we have this to taste today. So obviously I've drunk a little bit of this as well. So let's go in for a nose. Color-wise, it looks more like the bonded color, maybe a cross between the bonded and the Old Number 7. Not the bonded and the 10-year, not as dark as the 10-year though. Let's go in for a nose. So this Sinatra whiskey reminds me more of a toasted whiskey. It's very similar in nosing to Old Forester 1910 in my opinion. Yes, it's a different distillery, but it comes under the Brown-Forman umbrella. There may be crossover there, there may not be, but it kind of tastes like a toasted whiskey, I'll be honest. It's very sweet, very caramelly, but it has a lot more of that burnt char note to it as well. There's not much age or oak coming through. There's just no spicy notes on the nose with this. It's a very inviting nose. It kind of knows it's like a 30% ABV whiskey. There's just no heat there whatsoever. Let's go in for a taste. Jack Daniel's Sinatra. Wow, that just goes down like water. There's just, not that there's nothing there in the flavor, there's just no proof presence there. There's no oak spice, there's no pepper, there's no real cinnamon. It's just really sweet to begin with, like some light molasses or some a touch of maybe maple syrup. You do get a little bit of that brown sugar and those toasty barrel char notes. But in terms of mouthfeel, it's quite thick and it just goes down, doesn't burn, no Kentucky hug whatsoever. I'm sure the man himself would be pretty impressed with this bottle. It is a cool bottle by design. It also comes in this like really unique box which has a pamphlet about the great man himself. And the You Only Need 5 Bourbon Challenge, I put this as a really interesting bottle to impress my guests because I think it fills that hole. $170. I would say personally that Old Forester 1910 and Woodford Reserve Double Oak probably tastes better. So for value for money, I know I'm not reviewing it, but I'd probably give it a D. But it's pretty unique. It's a fun bottle. That's all it is. It's a little bit gimmicky, but it's a fun gimmicky bottle. So that was Jack Daniel's Sinatra, and now moving on to almost the jewel in the crown here, and that is Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Proof. This one is coming in at 64.9% ABV or 129.8 proof. Also close to 130 margin there. This is a really good pick. I've tried it before, but let's see what flavor notes we can pick out of the nose here. Looks really viscous in the glass, probably the most viscous one to date here. Darkness wise, it has very similar. Maybe it's actually a little bit darker than the 10-year, so it's the darkest one we've had so far, which you will come to expect because it has this non-chill filtered, uncut, and it has been, you know, no water has been added. So let's go in for a nose here. Ooh. I don't know what it is with this bottle or the Jack Daniel's barrel proof single barrels in general, but every time I take a nose, that first nose just blows me away just how good this bottle is. Let's go back in for another nose here. It is bonded on steroids, which is why I like that so much. It has all those flavor notes. It has the cherry, it has the banana, it has the caramel cake with the cinnamon on top and the caramel sauce drizzled. And it's just so thick on the nose here. And you can pick out all of those flavors. It's just so thick and viscous. It's a beautiful dessert type whiskey. After a big full Thanksgiving meal or a meal outside in the summer, some tacos and stuff, you need something a little bit more proofy and sweet just to kind of cut through all that fat there and grease. You drink this and this is just a perfect whiskey. Other flavor notes here, I don't get too much of an oak presence. It's more of like a sweeter wood, again maybe leaning more into like a maple or pecan wood here. For a 65% or close to a 65%, I don't get much proof as well on the nose. This whiskey does a really good job at masking that ABV on the nose with that sweetness. So let's go in for a taste here on the single barrel proof. You get a lot of that sweetness straight up front. However, that proof does come back a little bit. On the nose, it does a really good job at hiding the ABV, but you do get the ABV on the palate, but it's not like a ABV or a proof uppercut in the jaw. It's a nice, gentle, romantic kind of rock in your mouth with the sweetness there as well. That caramel, maple, barrel char notes come straight through the palate, and the finish is really nice and long. The sweetness travels with you. The wood of the maple or the kind of pecan note travels with you as well. It doesn't really dry out too much in the end then, and it just keeps going and going and going and leaves you wanting just more. And for a 65%, it just drinks so well. You do get that kind of initial kind of proof note in your mouth, but it doesn't transcend through kind of like your throat, and like there's no real Kentucky hug there. Always an impressive bottle. I think I paid like $60 for this guy. Phenomenal value for money. I think for this I also paid like $70 for the 10-year, just to update you with that. So that leaves us with last on this list. And I wanted to put the rye either first or last, but I thought let's just put it last because it's a little bit different in taste. I paid $21.99 for this one, a little bit higher than this. This is coming in at 45% alcohol or 90 proof. So I haven't drunk much of this before. It says it's a 70% rye grain bill. So I can imagine a lot of the rest of that 30% probably like malted barley or corn. I think I've had like a bull rye from Jack Daniels and kind of like their experimental stuff, but I haven't really drunk just that much of their own standalone rye. I was really hoping to get kind of like the barrel proof rye because I hear that's just insane. I haven't been able to get that, so we'll just stick with the OG rye for the time being. Let's go and look at the whiskey here. For a rye, it's not too dark. Maybe coming off the back of these three, it looks a little bit lighter. Lighter than the 10-year. About the same as the bonded, actually. I think the bonded in color is about the same as this, kind of like that amber tea looking color there as well. Let's go in for a nose here. Definitely get spearmint straight off the bat. Hell, you know you're drinking a rye with this guy. Why I like saying spearmint as opposed to just mint in general, I feel like spearmint has a more of a sweet vanilla note attached to it as well. It's not too bad. I think mint in general in a drink can be a little bit off-putting, but I think it does a really good job with the sweetness of Jack Daniels and the flavor profile to kind of balance it out really well. You do get a little bit maybe of like that rye grain note. It's not grainy, but when you drink a rye, you get like a certain rye characteristic, and it's definitely there with this. And you get some of that sweet kind of caramelness that I was getting with the rest of them here as well. It's definitely a Jack Daniels rye. It has, you know, a lot of the Jack Daniels standard notes, but it has like that rye, kind of the spice pepper note, and then the spearmint as well. Let's go in for a taste. This is the Jack Daniels rye. Has this kind of rye bready quality to it. Not very spicy for a rye. More of like a little peppering on a little rye peppering on your tongue there. Has a little bit of sweetness, but not too much on the palate. The mint doesn't really transcend through much into the palate. It's only on that finish that it kind of pops up a little bit. It has quite a decent finish there as well, but it is more of a drier kind of, I wouldn't say tobacco, I would say more like a leather finish. It is kind of more of that like new leather finish on the back end there. It's not too bad of a rye. I think you can put it in the category with, actually, you probably can't put it in the category with like Baby Saz or Rittenhouse. It's definitely not as good as that, but it's a pretty everyday rye. 45% ABV. You can probably reach out to it on a weekday, have a couple of glasses, and you'll be fine the next day. So, some final thoughts on the Jack Daniels taste through. Old number 7 didn't come across that bad. I think just because of the proof, there wasn't much going on. The rye is just okay. I probably would leave that. Now I have a bottle, I probably wouldn't get another one. The bonded continues to be a fantastic whiskey. The aged 10-year, it surprised me as I had a lot more bourbon notes as maybe the typical Jack Daniel notes. Sinatra is a really cool bottle to own, but I probably would never buy another one again unless it was gifted to me. And then the barrel proof is again the crown jewel here. It is the best alternative to Stag Junior or any hard to find barrel proof whiskeys out there. Time and time again, this will beat this out in a blind. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. And don't forget, go over to our website, TheWhiskeyCove.square.site, and go check us out on all the fun stuff that we've been doing lately. And then also as well, I've been playing with some of the ad stuff for the videos. So if there's too many ads or at the wrong places, I'm still trying to get caught up with that stuff, so just give us some feedback about that as well. As we drink through the world's whiskeys, one glass at a time, this Jack Daniels Barrel Proof is just simply fantastic. Cheers.